so we're just going to have a short session here. I'm going to ask a few questions of Laura Chen. She is CEO of China Media Consulting Company, and she has a lot of experience working in the film industry in China as well as in Hollywood. So she's like a bridge, and she's going to speak to us on the Chinese film industry. So for now, we just want to talk a little bit about the film that we just saw, and I'll start by asking a few questions, and then we'll turn to the audience and get some questions from you all. So Laura, you know, it was quite a exciting film, and so I wondered what the reception was like in China. How did this film go over with the Chinese audience?
Film did very well and opened in late December 2015 and carried through to the new year, to 2016. First, originally was scheduled for 1 month for theatrical release, means in the cinema. But because the demand, they extended to almost 2 months. Did very well on box office, made about $137 million in China. Internationally, in the US, did, I believe, is $1.4 million for those type of film is considered high. So did very well box office.
And what do you think the Chinese audience liked about the film, and or anything in particular that critics said about the film?
In general, because this film is kind of a Feng Xiaogang's film, even though he didn't direct this one, Guang Hu did. But most of the audience, I believe you would know, the leading actor, Feng Xiaogang, he's a big film director, right? You know that. Even the He Sui Pian in the late 90s, 1997, 98, he started shooting film, the comedies, and those become the box office, big box office film for quite a few years for Huai Brothers. So basically in north part of China, people like this film very much. His film is more, because the history of his film, most of it more appreciated and enjoyed by northern part of the people. Maybe from the Changjiang, the Yangtze River, you go north, people enjoy this. When you go south, Shanghai, Guangdong, people don't watch as much. But in Beijing, the reason they have strong demand is the northern China and also the northeast of China. They all really appreciate this film. It rated pretty high in China. I looked online, the IMDb rated 7.8 out of 10 for two of a Chinese website. One is called M-Time, which is equivalent to IMDb in China, 7.9. There's another film site, lots of people write a comment. 347,000 people wrote it, and the average out 8.0 out of 10 on Douban. So the people really like it.
Okay. One thing I noticed that was very stark in this film is the treatment of social class and unequal classes. Do you think that may be a reason that people really like this film? And also I wondered, how did this treatment of a very sensitive issue get past the censorship?
If you watch the ending, those rich guys, they got into trouble. The father somewhere was kind of a typical corruption, they get caught.
Right.
So for all of that,
he sent off that letter, right, to the disciplinary commission, right?
Yeah, he sent it. Whether that's really from there or not is not very clear in the movie. But that's basically so many people get caught, and I mean those bad guys did corruption, and so I think for that reason they want to portray this way. They want to see, you know, the people, the little ones, and also in the end, you know, the kid, he want to have a bar, he opened a bar, right? So that's just really the underdogs or the little individual, they can make their dream. I think this is probably everybody like it, and I don't think any politically not correct in China.
Okay, so it wasn't really a problem.
Correct.
Okay, because of the ending, the way that they resolved, where the little guys were successful.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can go back to Feng Xiaogang. He's quite impressive as an actor. He won a prize at the Taipei Golden Horse Awards for the acting, but he's known for his screenplay and his directing.
Right.
So he probably had a hand in writing this film too.
He didn't get a writing credit. Basically, it's Guan Hu, the director. Guan Hu is doing very well, but I'm sure as you know, Feng Xiaogang is there, deeply involved. If something he feel need to do something, he would say something. I fully imagine he is very devoted to this cinema.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we can turn to some questions from the audience that you might have for Laura Chen.
Thank you. I had a question. You commented on how this did get a theatrical release in America, and I was wondering if you could speak more about that, about what that proved, not necessarily specific to this film, but about what the process is like having films be theatrically released in the United States.
Actually, this specific one, I believe, is released by China Lion. China Lion is a theatrical distribution company based in China, but they have operations in here in North America, then even in Australia, Europe, and so they regularly put film out. Yeah, they before Wanda bought AMC in 2012, they already have a deal with AMC. So afterwards, that deal continue or not, but China Lion has been regularly distribute the Chinese language film.
And is it owned by Chinese or is it an American company?
No, it's Chinese company. Yeah, but strongly supported by Chinese government too. They have some difficult time financially try to make it run because a lot of time film only make $50,000. It doesn't really make financial sense. But on the other hand, they want to make sure the Chinese film is being seen overseas. So the company who owns this, Mr. Jiang, he has pretty good working with the Chinese government, work with Film Bureau. They somehow, he get film, like US film released in China, they make up this part.
Yeah, actually the guy that I dealt with at this distributing company was an American, white American, Euro-American.
Yeah, he has an office in Century City. He does hire Americans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they also do production those days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael?
I'm really interested in the distinction you made between northern audiences versus southern audiences, and I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit more. Why is this so popular with northern audiences and not with southern audiences, and how would the film be different if it were made for a southern audience, like if it were made by Johnny To?
You mean maybe made by Zhang Yimou?
No, Johnny To, the Hong Kong filmmaker.
Oh, okay. This film, if you understand the Chinese dialogue, is more Beijinger. For example, even the title, English is Mr. Six, but Chinese is Lao Pao. But they have in the end is Lao Pao. So like Hua Xiazi, the lady's name, and those are very local slang, Beijing dialect. Even you just go a little bit more south, people would not even pick up. They even don't understand what they're saying. So here, they didn't exaggerate that, but used enough. I'm a native Beijinger, so I can hear all of this. That's why just basically people feel very local. But when the people are not familiar with those kind of dialect, they don't really appreciate as much.
So is it dialect or is it narrative also? I mean, is this...
Both.
Yeah, in what way? I'm interested more in the narrative. Like the dialect is one hurdle, right? But I'm interested, is there a way in which the story resonates differently with a northern audience than with a southern audience? Because
I think it's a more language, some culture. Language is stronger. If you just make it totally 普通话, probably South people could enjoy just as much. But now some people, when they hear the they're not really like that much.
Then can I ask just one follow-up question? Why do a film in China now when you have tremendous box office? I mean, this did very well, but you have tremendous box office potential if you can do a nationwide film. So why do one that is more specifically oriented towards a northern audience?
That's a very good question. I think could be from the real story. They based in a novel, I believe, and that real story was happened in Beijing, and they used the saying 新街口, 后海, all of those, just typical Beijing. I think that's the reason. Really, is no reason they try to do something not going to travel, but just happened they feel it's a great story and they want to do that. That's my understanding.
I also think there's a kind of north-south gender difference. This to me felt like a bit of a hyper-masculinist film. I think northerners tend to be a bit more masculinist than southerners. So like the rich boy, the rich young boy with the white hair and the fancy leather clothes and the fancy cars, he seemed a bit more like a southerner to me. I mean, he's a bit more feminine. So I think the gender presentation is different north and south.
Just kind of a follow-up on that. What sort of themes might resonate more if a movie was made for southern audiences? So maybe how would this movie change if it was for southern audiences, or if there was a movie made specifically for southern audiences, what would that look like? Would there be this class divide? I mean, we heard a little bit about the masculinity, femininity issue, but what themes would be present? Yeah.
I think there's some film, for example, right now, lots of Hong Kong film directors work in China with local Chinese film crew. A lot of film, their even dialect have some from people speak Mandarin, 普通话, but with the accent of Hong Kong. Their native language is more Cantonese. So those kind of film you can see pretty typical. North people enjoy that as well, but you can see even like a Mermaid is Stephen Chow, his film. And there are some speakers in the film, some actors, they are from Hong Kong. Those you can see some, from the southern thing. But I don't think the northern people say because of that we don't like it. They just enjoy it as much.
There was also at the end, there was rock music by Cui Jian, China's first and most famous rock musician and singer. And that is very northern. So it's kind of similar to the West, where northern people, like Scandinavians and Germans and Brits, they're really into rock music. But you go to Southern Europe, they're not so into French and Italians. They're not so into rock. Same thing in China, too. The Southerners are not so into rock music.
And my question is that about the casting of this film, because I feel that the two leading characters, the young actors, they are really, really popular in China, and they are singers, and like one of them has been trained in Korea, and then he came back to China. But they have like millions of fans, like on like Chinese network, social network. And also, like, I don't know whether you've noticed, there were 3 boys singing in that word. It was like, yeah, they have like millions of fans, like on like Chinese, like Twitter, Chinese Weibo, like it's like the counterpart of Twitter. So it's made me feel like really strange to see these 3 two actors, like because their acting styles was too different. I like kind of like make me like feel like I'm out of a play like for a moment. So I'm wondering like the box office was really good, but I'm wondering like how much like did the fans contributed to that? I mean, it's like a phenomenon now.
The interesting thing about this film that even though they're so popular, the film is really slanted towards the older generation, right? It's really from the point of view of the older generation. And it's these young punks who have no principles. So the valuation, it seems to me, of the film is so putting these highly popular young people kind of a little lower. So that I think that was an interesting move of the film.
Actually, you made a very, very good point on this toward older people. Right now in China, normal film box office, one is a high, lots of young people go there, average age like 20, 20 and a half, 21. But for this film, a lot of people in their 50s, 40s, they want to see it. I think that's also made a contribution for the box office.
Okay, yeah. So both young and old go
because
to this. Yeah.
What they did is, if someone lived through 1960s, 70s, they would remember many of those, the scene, the character. People really appreciate that, so they went to see that. Yeah, and also during Chinese holidays was the end of the year, beginning of the New Year. I mean 2016, but it's the Chinese New Year time.
Hi, I'd like to. This has been such a fascinating discussion. I would like to hear from you. Looking to the future of Chinese filmmaking and also the distribution of Chinese film in the West and internationally. What are some of the trends that you see? What do you think is going to be the near future of Chinese filmmaking? I know that's a very broad question, but I think you're beautifully placed to be able to answer that.
Thank you. Great question. I think gradually it's going to be getting better. The story will be told more, can be understood by more international audience. Also, the way of making film. Right now, the Chinese film crew constantly show up in LA, try to find someone who is very experienced, whether it's animator or feature film writer. They try to work together. So it takes time for really West and the East. You really work together on 1-2 project together. But if you look 2 examples, recent co-production, one is Kung Fu Panda 3. They really did a 2 version. They have the English version, they make the animation, you can see the mouse movement, everything. Then they have a crew that led by Teng Huatao, who is the film director for 失恋33天. What is the film in English? I don't remember. It's one very popular film director, and he directed the Chinese portion. And so they later adopted that. And he and his crew, Teng Huatao, spent 3 months in the US, try to understand the creative process here with DreamWorks Animation. Then they went back to China. They constantly working on that. So really it's 2 different films. That's one example. Another example.
For 2 different audiences on both sides of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And another film is a recent Disney nature film, Born in China. The film in China is already exhibited. It's already in cinema. 我们诞生在中国, Born in China. It's a Chinese female actress did a voice narration. Then there will be a version in the US, will be released in April 2017 on the Earth Day. So this can be another very successful example. Other people challenge me saying, look, these are all animals, Disney nature and animation. When you come to human being, how do you go over that? I think gradually people find a way. Right now, Warner Brothers and also the Chinese, a few parties there produce film. And White Brothers have ambition to produce English language film. I think gradually they get there, but it takes, you know, perhaps a few years, maybe a couple of decades, really get there. But in the meantime, a film will pop up. Once in a while, you will say, wow, that's a very good story. But you may see some other, you know, you really feel, I wish that can be better. Now we all want to see The Great Wall, which will be showing. Yeah, The Great Wall.
What is it?
Is Zhang Yimou is directing. I mean, he basically finished. The film will be released in China in December, The Great Wall. Matt Damon is leading that.
Oh, Matt Damon.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that will be released.
That's really a joint production.
Yes, $165 million US production. So it's a legendary picture. Universal will release in here. They put the dates to February 2017. I don't know what that means. The China version still open in December this year. I believe the China version, at least I hope, that can do better and get some money back, because 165 million production, that's need to make 480 million to make it break even. Need to be 3 times of that. So we'll see how that works. Yeah, I hope the low budget film, eventually students film, they can maybe break some ground, because you know you use low budget and you tell a good story, and that may start working. That's something I think and hope.
It seems to me there's a lot of, despite all these differences between these two countries, through film, there seems to be this momentum that has started of really intermeshing, especially through these co-productions. So, for example, this film is made, Mr. Six is made primarily for a Chinese audience. Totally. But the techniques and the filmic language, it seems China has, Chinese filmmakers have come such a long way. Because when I remember when I first started watching Chinese films in the 1980s, it really dates me, you know, the pacing was so slow, you know, you could just snore several times, you know. So, but now, this kind of film, they have gotten a grasp of a more universal kind of filmic language, very fast-paced editing, different kind of camera angles, and so forth. So why is it, though, that they can still make a film for a Chinese audience, like today's film, that speaks a much more universal filmic language? Why do they want to bring all these Hollywood people like Matt Damon, and then there was that Christian Bale in that film by Zhang Yimou too, to try to, why do they want to do these joint productions to mesh with American or Hollywood types? What is the motivation behind this?
I think they want a box office. I feel those people have the way to bring people into cinema. But unfortunately, you know, sometimes it doesn't always work. That's why I really hope independent, low-budget film, student film, you know, right now lots of Chinese students studied in the US, they grew up in China, so they have the roots over there, they have the concept, like educated here. And those people telling story could be really from international perspective. They may break through. Yeah. That's what I really hope.
Well, we have the example of Li An, right? Ang Li. He was from Taiwan, and he studied in the US at NYU, and then he started making film that appeals to audiences everywhere.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay. So thank you very much, all of you for coming. Yeah, and